Tower Gardens hosts the Rootstock Plant Sale this Saturday. Enjoy hay rides through Pine Ridge Reserve, live music by Highway 41, and shop from over 25 vendors from across Florida. More at bachtower.org. Support comes from EnduraFlood, made to protect Florida homes from drywall damage caused by flooding from hurricanes. Components are designed to be waterproof, and the EnduraFlood wall system can be opened and removed to dry out. Details are at enduraflood.com. You're listening to WUSF, your spot for local.
The search for a university president can be a bit of a political tightrope. So, how will the next president of the University of South Florida, one of the biggest employers in the Tampa Bay region, navigate the politics of the role? I'm Matthew Petty, and coming up on Florida Matters Live and Local, education, politics, and how people get picked for the top academic jobs in the Sunshine State. And has your perspective on the death penalty changed over time? What led you to switch on such a controversial topic? You can call and join the conversation. We're at 813-755-6562. That's 813-755-6562. Or email FloridaMatters@WUSF.org. Also, the cigar industry built Tampa. It used to be smokin'. What's left of it today? You'll also meet a Plant City native working to make her community better. That's ahead on Florida Matters Live and Local. First, the news.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Kristen Wright. The U.S. government has been shut down for 12 hours now because federal agencies have pretty much run out of money. And now a funding plan backed by Senate Democrats has just failed a little while ago. Now the Senate is voting on a Republican plan. Congress failed yesterday to pass competing measures to keep the government funded. NPR's Claudia Grisales says at the center of the shutdown is a political standoff.
Earlier this year, Senate Democrats helped Republicans keep the government funded, but that drew sharp backlash. And since that time, their lack of power in Washington has become even more stark. President Trump and Republicans passed a massive partisan spending and tax plan, dismantled government agencies, laid off workers, and slashed public services by clawing back billions in spending. Now, Democrats are asking for an extension of Affordable Care Act subsidies that are set to expire at the end of the year.
While the partisan conflict continues, an estimated 750,000 federal workers are expected to be furloughed, and funding for SNAP and WIC food and nutrition benefits could run out if there is a prolonged shutdown. Social Security, veterans, and disability benefits are not expected to be affected for now, but some services could be delayed, like the processing of applications. A new NPR PBS News Marist poll out today finds an overwhelming majority of people want children vaccinated before going to school. NPR's Domenico Montanaro reports.
The survey indicates 82% support requiring children to be vaccinated against certain diseases such as measles, mumps, and rubella before attending public school. That includes 71% of Republicans, but Republicans don't feel as strongly as independents or Democrats do about this. For example, 77% of those who voted for Democrat Kamala Harris in the 2024 presidential election felt strongly that children should be vaccinated, while only 30% of Trump voters did. The Trump administration, led by Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr., has consistently moved to limit
Can you hear me now? Okay.
Near Grand Blanc here in Michigan.
You're going to focus on the better and the good, and you shouldn't have to be worried about the evil.
Brankama says she thinks about safety while at worship, but she's not worried.
Because we have an excellent security team.
Church security is becoming more widespread these days, something synagogues and mosques in the U.S. have been grappling with for decades. Jason DeRose, NPR News, Grand Blanc, Michigan.
This is NPR.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Progressive, with small business insurance for protecting a variety of business types with multiple coverage options, designed to fit business owners' needs. More about small business insurance is at progressivecommercial.com.
You're listening to WUSF 89.7. I'm Craig Kopp. The sale of the Tampa Bay Rays is official. WUSF's Steve Newborn reports the roughly $1.7 billion deal closed on Tuesday.
The new owners are an investment group led by Jacksonville homebuilder Patrick Zalupski. He will serve as co-chair of the team, along with Bill Cosgrove, CEO of Union Home Mortgage, a longtime title sponsor of the Gasparilla Bowl in Tampa. Eric Neander, who has been with the Rays for 19 years, will continue to serve as president of baseball operations. He spoke about the team's prospects under the new ownership during an unrelated press conference Tuesday.
As long as there's alignment, and there's good people, we can figure this out, and by all accounts, that's there, and whatever path that takes, I'll be more than honored to take the ride with them and figure out a way to win a championship.
The deal means there's new life in the team's quest to remain in the Tampa Bay area. Several sites in Tampa have been named as a possible location for a new stadium. The team is contractually obligated to play through the 2028 season at Tropicana Field. Stuart Sternberg, who has owned the Rays since 2004, will hold a 10% stake in the team. Other minor owners include Will Weatherford, former Speaker of the Florida House and Chair of the University of South Florida Board of Trustees. Steve Newborn, WUSF 89.7 News.
You're going to want to leave yourself some extra time if you're heading east on I-4 out of Tampa this weekend. All northbound lanes on I-275 are going to be closed at the I-4 interchange, also known as Malfunction Junction, starting Saturday at midnight. Top of that, only one southbound lane will be open from Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard into downtown. Several detours will be in place. Florida Department of Transportation advising drivers to expect delays and congestion through 5 a.m. on Monday. You can find a list of the detours at WUSF.org. I'm Craig Kopp, WUSF 89.7 News.
Are you interested in audio storytelling and podcasting? On Wednesday, October 22nd, WUSF is hosting a pop-up event in Tampa with workshops for podcast producers and audio makers. Free tickets at WUSF.org.
Duke Energy Center for the Arts Mahaffey Theater presents The Concert That Never Was, Until Now, Queen and Floyd. A celebration of Queen and Pink Floyd with precise renditions of their greatest songs. Friday, October 10th. More at themahaffey.com.
You're listening to Florida Matters, live and local, broadcasting from the doctors Lorraine Rubis and Neil Frankel studio at WSF. University presidential searches have been increasingly politicized lately in Florida. Against that backdrop, how will USF's incoming president navigate the politics of higher education? Moaz Lamayam is the only finalist for the job. He's got a strong academic pedigree, but what about his political savvy? He still has to be confirmed by the USF Board of Trustees and the Florida Board of Governors. For more, we're joined by WSF's Mark Schreiner, who's covered the university for decades. Mark, thanks so much for stepping in.
Well, thank you very much for having me. I'm glad to be here.
And Eric Kelderman, who is a senior writer with the Chronicle of Higher Education. Eric, thank you as well.
Yeah, great to be with you. Thanks.
And we want to hear from you as well. Are you happy to see a former University of South Florida dean come back to run the school with campuses in Tampa, St. Petersburg, and Sarasota? And what does a university leader need to succeed in this highly political environment? Call 813-755-6562. That's 813-755-6562. Send an email too. We're at FloridaMatters@WUSF.org. Mark, just put a little bit of context around this for us, if you could. USF is a massive employer in our region, right? About 16,000 employees, nearly 50,000 students. Does that kind of help explain why this job search is such a big deal?
Any college is always going to have a big deal when they're looking for a president. USF, in addition, as you say, to being such a large employer in the area, it is the third was the third preeminent university in the state of Florida. When you're looking at the public universities, it ranks right beneath University of Florida and Florida State University when it comes to its academic importance, as well as it is a member of the AAU. So there's just there's so many things that happen with the university the leadership is an important job, and getting the right person is such a major important thing to do.
And Moaz Lamayam has deep ties to USF, right? So does this mean sort of doubling down on stability, or is it kind of navigating a fairly difficult time, a challenging time for USF?
I would say both to some extent, because you are looking at so many changes in higher education here in the state of Florida. When you look at the number of public universities that have had changes in presidencies over the last 3 or 4 years, and Eric can speak to this more as well, so many of them have ended up in the hands of people who in many cases are not academics, and they're more politically tied. Now, you do have some folks, Florida International University, for example, where that is a president who had ties to the school, but then had the political ties with Jeanette Nunez, the former lieutenant governor. But Moaz here has the experience of being at USF for 10 years as the dean of the College of Business, and then the experience of 3 years heading the University of North Florida as university president. So it's not like he left the state. He's been in the state university system for over 10 years with a leadership role. So I think that's why it makes it a good choice.
Right, so business and academics are a blend of those. Well, let me go to you, Eric. A bunch of public university presidential picks in Florida have been politicians, as Mark was saying. You've got UF's former president Ben Sass, New College president Richard Corcoran, FIU president Jeanette Nunez. Now, she took the job while she was lieutenant governor. What do you make of some of those selections?
Well, I think that speaks to, the state leadership in Florida that really wants to put its stamp on higher education, sort of not just administratively, but maybe even sort of ideologically, right? Your governor has been very outspoken about his criticisms of higher education, and really certainly a lot of the more recent picks to lead universities have reflected that. Even your interim president at UF, Mr. Landry, has come out in criticism of, for instance, DEI policies, and maybe reflecting a somewhat more conservative political stance.
We would love to hear from you as well. If you've got a question about the politics of selecting a university president, give us a call. We're at 813-755-6562. Who is the kind of person that you would like to see leading the University of South Florida? 813-755-6562. You can email FloridaMatters@WUSF.org. Eric, LeMayem has this kind of background in academics. He has strong ties to the business community. Is it a bit of a unicorn that USF has found here?
Well, I don't know if a unicorn. I think there's lots of folks out there that that would claim that kind of experience. I think, as your other reporter mentioned, right, he has ties to the state. That makes him a very comfortable pick for your board. He's not going to be a wild card, right? Certainly, and there are other presidents in your system who reflect that kind of, sort of mixed background. President Timur at Florida Gulf Coast is a Florida not a Florida native, but has time in the state, right? There's one other person. Devin Stephenson, right? former CEO, and was president of Northwest Florida State College for many years. So those folks exist out there. I just think it's a matter of, again, sort of checking the boxes that universities are going to, that your state board is going to feel comfortable with putting someone in a position of leadership.
And Matt, I just want to say, for the idea of a unicorn, it's this choice 10 years ago would not have been an unusual choice. It's just now that the way that Florida has kind of turned with the presidential selection, that going with a traditional academic person with ties to the university is a little unusual.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the ties to the university, that's interesting too, right? Because he isn't the only big hire that the university has announced recently. You also have a CEO of athletics they just announced, Rob Higgins. He's got ties to USF as well. Is that USF connection with both of these folks significant?
Well, you even go back one step further to current President Rhea Law, who is the first USF alum to serve as president of the university. And I think that speaks to what the trustee chair, Will Weatherford, and vice chair Michael Griffin. Vice chair Michael Griffin, also a USF alum. He was the first student body president I ever interviewed in 2001. So that tells you, how long the ties go back. Mm-hmm. They have looked at people like Rhea Law, like Higgins, Rob Higgins, and MOES to bring them back. One of the very first things that was said by MOES LeMayem was, "I'm coming home."
Mm-hmm. We want to hear from you too. What does a university leader need to succeed in this highly political environment in higher education in Florida? And are you happy to see a USF dean, a former USF dean, come back to run the school? It has campuses in Tampa, St. Petersburg, and Sarasota, a big footprint, both job-wise and academically, in Southwest Florida here. The number is 813-755-6562. That's 813-755-6562. You can email FloridaMatters@WUSF.org. So just talk about, I wonder if you could talk about this a little bit, Eric. I mean, if you look at some of the other university presidential searches that have been going on over the summer, you had the University of Florida's presidential hire scrapped, mostly for his work as president at the University of Michigan. So what makes LeMayem kind of different from how that whole process is shaked out?
Well, I think a couple of things in common, which is, Florida has this law now which makes presidential candidates, exempt from open records searches. And so a lot of the search process goes on behind the scenes where, candidates aren't sort of vetted publicly before they're announced. And that can create problems, as happened with Mr. Ono, because the public and elected officials and other interested parties don't have a chance to sort of weigh in before someone is being announced. This is obviously different. Again, as Mark has alluded to, LeMayem has deep ties to the state, is sort of a known quantity. The UF search was different as well in that, the Ben Sass presidency sort of blew up in a spectacular way, and the revelations about his spending were really sort of shocking in a sense. And it points to the fact that running a university is not just like running any other big business. It's a much more, in many ways, much more complex enterprise.
An email here from Tyra, who writes, "I want this new president to remember what makes USF the great institution that it is: diversity. Protect your staff and students at all costs and fight for their rights." Eric, I mean, that's kind of it's become a bit of a politically charged word these days, diversity, right? So I wonder, is there a line to tread between a university that is trying to do right by its students and navigate this kind of tricky political pressure it may be feeling from the state?
It is hard. We've seen really a sort of widespread retreat from a lot of the sort of political movement after the George Floyd murder in 2020, when universities sort of almost universally adopted, plans to, improve the outcomes of underrepresented minorities on campus, sort of widespread use of diversity, equity, and inclusion. We've certainly seen that, be tanked either by state laws or just basically sort of universities shedding those policies to avoid sort of politically controversial issues. I think the trick here is that universities have to support all the students on their campus.
Yeah.
Right. And in some cases, even without recruiting underrepresented minorities, you're going to have a lot of students who are coming from Hispanic or backgrounds, or they're Black students. They're coming from lower income families.
Right.
And the trick is, right, you have to find ways to help them succeed. That's your future workforce. And so presidents have to walk this fine line about saying, well, we're going to help everybody get across the finish line and reap the rewards of their a very fine line to ride there. Well, Eric Kelderman, senior writer with the Chronicle of Higher Education. We've got to leave it there, but thank you so much for your insights. We also heard from WSF's Mark Schreiner. Mark, thank you as well.
Thank you.
Coming up next, Tampa's Ybor City is sometimes called the cigar capital of the world. Today, there's just one cigar factory still doing it the old way. We'll learn why cigars are such a big part of Tampa's history. It's coming up on Florida Matters, live and local. Stay with us.
FEMA doles out more than $11 million to repair a tourist attraction in Florida, even as states affected by natural disasters see their assistance delayed. Next time, Here and Now.
Today at 1.
Listener support powers WUSF. Funding also comes from Seitenbacher, with a new web shop, healthy muesli, cold-pressed oils, and vegetable broth mix delivered to your door from right here in Tampa Bay. Details at Seitenbacher.com, Seitenbacher. Seitenbacher. Tech House, celebrating 30 years as a strategic tech partner in the local community, helping small businesses navigate the terrain to stay secure and strong with AI, automation, and cloud security. More information is at tech-house.com.
One listener told us WUSF has been there for me through every season of my life. Listener support is what makes this possible. Be a part of it as a sustaining member at WUSF.org, because resilience doesn't just happen, it's sustained.
This is Florida Matters, live and local. Ybor City used to be the cigar manufacturing center of the world. 140 years ago this month, Vicente Martinez Ybor bought a patch of land on the outskirts of Tampa to relocate a cigar-making operation from Key West. At its peak, Ybor City boasted more than 200 cigar factories. Now, there's just one. So what happened to this industry that helped build Tampa into what it is today? For more, we're joined by Drew Newman with J.C. Newman Cigars. Drew, thank you so much for stopping by.
Thank you so much for having me.
And we're also joined by Rodney Kite-Powell with the Tampa Bay History Center. Rodney, thank you as well.
Of course. No, it's great to be here.
So, Drew, I want to start with you. You've got some cigars with you. Just let's take a look at these. Okay, so, and just if you hold them up for the camera, if you could. The camera's just right here. I mean, this is kind of a work of art, right? You've got the Tampa sign. Let me
these are Diamond Crown Tampa cigars that celebrate Tampa's legacy as Cigar City. And so on these cigars that are made by hand are a bunch of Tampa landmarks, everything from Plant Hall to the Jose Gasparilla ship to our factory to the Ybor City chickens to the downtown Tampa skyline, because cigars are to Tampa what cars are to Detroit, what wine is to Napa Valley. It's part of our culture, history, and tradition, and we're celebrating the 140th anniversary of the start of that on Sunday.
It's kind of a beautiful piece. I mean, it seems a shame to smoke, and I should note too, this is a no-smoking studio, so we're not going to be lighting these up in here, but you mentioned a bunch of industries that are, some of them are shadows of their former selves, right? Like Detroit. I mean, you know, you drive down the motorway there and you see that massive tire still there, and it's still associated, you know, it's Motor City, but the automobile industry isn't what it used to be. Same as here, right? I mean, in Napa Valley, of course, wine is still being produced there, but it really isn't what it once was. So, I mean, is there still a place for cigar manufacturing here in Tampa?
There is. And so before Mr. Ybor came to Tampa in 1885, there were just 700 people in our region, some farmers, some fishermen, and Fort Brooke downtown. And so cigars transformed our community and built it to the largest city in the state of Florida about 100 years ago. But for lots of reasons, the cigar industry left Tampa and moved overseas starting in the 70s and the 80s and moving on to the 90s. But there's still a great place here because it's part of our history, it's our culture, it's our food, it's our the languages. It's the legacy of the cigar industry is still alive and well in Ybor City.
Rodney, as Drew was saying, like once there were dozens of factories and they were teeming with workers rolling these things. I mean, who were they and how did they influence the culture we still see here?
Well, the cigar workers came mostly from Cuba. There were Spaniards that were rolling cigars, but there was a bit of a stratified community, particularly early on, where the Spaniards generally owned cigar factories or maybe were the kind of management of the cigar factories. And you also have Sicilians who were part of the culture as well. And the reason why there were Cubans rolling cigars is because the industry came from Cuba kind of by way of Key West. And there's a variety of reasons what prompted it to move from Havana to Key West to Tampa. But one of them was labor difficulty. The other one was tariffs. We think a lot about tariffs now. There were tariffs on finished cigars, but there weren't tariffs necessarily on the raw tobacco, at least in the 1880s. And so the tobacco was brought from Cuba to Tampa, but also those workers were.
Right, and it's a skill, right? Like kind of rolling these things is a skill.
And that's the thing. Drew is, I think, really clever to mention Detroit because that is, we think about as the factory town. And nothing against those workers, but, pretty early, particularly with Ford and others, you had an automated process, and you could be a skilled worker, but not necessarily have to be super skilled. The cigar industry was this great marriage of a massive industrial kind of factory kind of complex, but the workers were artisans. They rolled these cigars by hand, and they were able to produce hundreds of millions per year as a group.
Right.
And that's what makes it really amazing. And they brought this culture with them from Spain, Cuba, and Sicily and Italy.
Drew, you can try your hand at rolling a cigar at your factory, right? Like,
Yes.
walk me through that process. How long does it take?
Sure. So we still roll cigars by hand here in Ybor City, just like my great-grandfather and grandfather did 100 years ago. And it's an art form, it's a tradition, and it's slow. Our rollers, each of them rolls about 80 cigars per day, and it's a handcrafted process and hasn't changed. And love to show you, Matthew, how to do it next time you're our way in Ybor City.
One thing I wanted to ask you about, and I'd love to take a look at it myself, but one thing I wanted to ask you is, back in the day they had people reading to the factory workers, right?
Yes.
As they rolled. So they'd read newspapers, they'd read stories and other things too, I think. But do you have something like that going on now? Have you got a lector kind of reading stuff as the artisans are making these cigars?
So today our cigar rollers, most of them have earbuds in it, and they listen
Sure.
to podcast or WUSF or something else that's music while they're rolling cigars. But prior to radio, cigar rollers were entertained by lectors. The cigar rollers pooled their money together, and the rollers themselves hired this educated person who would stand on a platform and read great works of literature, news of the day, propaganda, and that's how they were entertained. And so even though Tampa cigar workers may not have been very literate functionally, they were very educated and wise because they were read to every day.
I understand there was also a baseball team called the Smokers, right? I mean, that tells you something about how embedded in the culture, the fabric of the community the cigar industry was.
Absolutely. The cigar industry had an effect on Tampa, far beyond just the manufacturing of cigars. And so, there was a semi-pro baseball team, eventually became a minor league team called the Tampa Smokers. Al Lopez, future baseball Hall of Famer, played for the Smokers. And then really baseball, we can go on and on about that in and of itself, but baseball was extraordinarily popular in Tampa at that time. The cigar factories had their own teams, the mutual aid societies had their own teams, but then the Smokers were really the best of the conglomeration of those best players to play for the semi-pro and then minor league team. But you had Tampa was so synonymous with cigars that you had manufacturers outside of Tampa that actually use the word Tampa in their name even. So Drew they have the word Tampa on their box to signify it's from Tampa. But it got to be such a problem that the city of Tampa allowed the city's seal to be placed on cigar boxes to prove that they were made here. Because you would have Jacksonville or even Cleveland companies, no offense Cleveland, who were putting Tampa Style or Tampa Select or whatever, and they had nothing to do with Tampa other than the name.
So kind of ripping it off in some ways.
Yep, exactly.
What about the future of your cigar factory, Drew? I mean, is it going to be around for another 100 years, do you think?
Absolutely. My great-grandfather started our company in 1895, and our only goal is to continue the tradition of rolling cigars here in Tampa for another 130 years, another 4 generations.
Is a Ybor cigar best after eating a Cuban sandwich?
It doesn't matter. A Cuban sandwich, cup of cafe con leche, a deviled crab, anytime's a great time for an Ybor City cigar. And
just finally, in the last few seconds we have here, would Tampa be the city it is now without the cigar industry?
Not in the least. Tampa owes so much of its culture, its identity, its accent, so to speak, from the cigar industry and those workers who came here.
Rodney Kite Powell with the Tampa Bay History Center, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And Drew Newman with the J.C. Newman Cigar Company, thank you, Drew.
Thank you.
Up next, Florida logged a somber milestone last night, the 13th inmate execution this year. It's a record for the state. We'll talk about why Florida is leading the nation on executions, and we'll take your calls. What are your thoughts about the death penalty, and what do you think the executions say about Florida? You can call 813-755-6562. That's 813-755-6562, or email FloridaMatters@WUSF.org. You're listening to Florida Matters live and local. More to come in a moment.
Tom Johnson was a top White House aide to LBJ, also a major newspaper publisher, and eventually the president of CNN. But despite his success, he spent many years suffering from depression in silence.
You can talk about a broken arm or a broken leg, but talking about a broken mind, it's tough to do.
I'm Elsa Chang. How mental health advocacy is becoming another part of Tom Johnson's legacy on the next All Things Considered from NPR News.
Starting at 4 on WUSF.
Support for WUSF comes from listeners like you and from Green & Green Attorneys at Law, whose team of divorce attorneys provide tailored guidance as needed for collaborative or traditional divorce. Green & Green, solution-oriented, trial-tested. Learn more at greenlegalfirm.com. The Florida Orchestra presents The Roaring Twenties, with music from the 1720s to today. October 8th and 9th at the Mahaffey Theater, with a special show at Strass Center. Tickets at floridaorchestra.org.
This is Florida Matters, live and local. I'm Matthew Petty. Well, Florida hit a somber milestone last night. Victor Tony Jones was put to death for the murders of inventor Jack Nestor and his wife Dolly in Miami in 1990. His death was the 13th execution this year, and the state's not done yet. Later this month, Samuel Smithers will be put to death for the 1996 murders of two Hillsborough County women, Christy Cohen and Denise Roach. Why is Florida leading the way in the number of executions? Texas is a distant number 2 with 5 people put to death this year. Well, for more, we're joined by Maria DiLiberato with the Floridians for Alternatives to the Death Penalty. Maria, thank you so much for being with us. Really appreciate that.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
And you can call in with your questions and comments. How do you feel about the executions in Florida? Are there better alternatives for people convicted of the worst crimes? And what about the need for justice for families of murder victims? If your perspective has changed on the death penalty over time, why is that? Why switch on such a controversial topic? You can call 813-755-6562. That's 813-755-6562, or email FloridaMatters@WUSF.org. Well, when Florida executed its 9th death row inmate by lethal injection this summer, Governor Ron DeSantis had this to say, quote, "There are some crimes that are just so horrific, the only appropriate punishment is the death penalty," end quote. We did reach out to both the Florida Attorney General's office and the Department of Corrections to be on the show. We didn't hear back from them in time for today's show, but we will share any comments from them on a future show. Maria, Florida does lead the nation in the number of executions this year. Do you have some insights into why the state might be making this a priority?
You know, it's really interesting. We do, as you noted, have the highest number of executions of any other state, and actually the highest number in Florida's history, both pre and post what we call the modern death penalty era, which is starting in the 1970s. So this is astonishing in its pace and number. And while many of us have questioned sort of the reason for the increase, there has been very little said from the governor's office as to why. Obviously, there's a lot of speculation regarding whether it's a political strategy. That seems to be the case. It doesn't seem as though there's really anyone in the public who's, clamoring for these executions to take place. But it does seem sort of tied. If you look at back in 2023, we had 6 executions when Governor DeSantis was making his presidential run. There was only 1 in 2024. And then beginning this year, in February, we had our first of, as you noted, 13.
Right.
And that really did seem to coincide with the Trump administration's strong push to support the death penalty.
You can call in too if you've got thoughts on the death penalty, the pros and cons. The number is 813-755-6562. You can send us an email. We're at FloridaMatters@WUSF.org. Let's go to John. John, you're on the air. What's on your mind?
Hi. I'm part of a local group that opposes the death penalty.
Mm-hmm.
I urge people to go to FADP.org, the Organized Floridians for Alternatives to the Death Penalty. I want to emphasize that. I'm sure Maria will. Everything you'd want to know, all sorts of good information. We have been gathering every time there's an execution at the corner of 49th Street and Ulmerton Road North. We're there an hour before the execution, 5 to 6. We were there yesterday, and what I think is interesting is that in the first years, people would honk and yell, "Kill them all," and so forth. It's been real quiet recently. We're near the courts and the jails, and as people come by, some of them work there, and they seem very sober and somber about it. But we are not getting a lot of public support in our vigils. And I've been at this for a while, and it's heartening to see the public responding to people on street corners, holding signs and saying, "Stop this ineffective and expensive practice."
John, just before I let you go, I wanted to ask you this. I mean, you do hear from the families of victims. Oftentimes, they say this is justice for us. So, what would you say to them?
Well, even when victims, survivors of the victims, plead with Governor DeSantis, "Don't do this, don't do this," he goes ahead and executes people anyway. And the other thing, and I'm sure Maria will bring this up, people sit on death row for decades. If it's to bring closure, why do they do that? Why does the state of Florida let them stay there for decades? I'm not going to tell somebody how to think, but as somebody who has not lost a loved one, as a citizen of Florida, as a taxpayer, I have to speak out against this.
John, thank you so much for your call. I appreciate that. I wanted to read this email too. If people hear about what the people on death row did to their victims, I bet more people would support the death penalty. So, Maria, I mean, what about that? Because it sounds like from what John's saying and what you're saying is like there's a lot of opposition to what's happening, and especially the pace of executions in Florida right now. But there are folks who say, well, look, this is justice, or a measure of justice for folks who have victims, or the families of victims of these crimes.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's sort of a common sentiment until you really look at the process, right, and see what's happening. And as John noted, we had an execution this year where the victim's family member was adamantly opposed to the execution, begged the governor not to proceed, and the attorney general's office callously told her, well, we can offer you counseling after your father's executed. Her father was executed for killing her mother, so she was a victim on both sides. And so there's certainly this sort of visceral desire for what they consider the death penalty to be justice. But if you really sort of look at the process, Florida has the lowest standard for imposing death. We have the highest number of exonerations of any state in the nation. We've sentenced more innocent people to death than any other state. And when you also sort of talk about the alternative, right, the alternative punishment is life without the possibility of parole, which is an effectively very, very harsh punishment that provides immediate finality to a sentence, whereas a death sentence, goes on for decades. And I always get that question, well, why does it take so long? Well, it takes so long because we get it wrong so often. And so there has to be this fail-safe, or Florida will certainly execute an innocent person. There was a person that died on death row who was posthumously exonerated.
Let me just share something from a couple of folks who are family members of victims of crimes. Here's Ryan Petty. Here's what he says of the killer of his daughter Elena. She was one of the people killed in the 2018 Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School shooting in Parkland. And Ryan said, quote, "If you can't get the death penalty for killing 17 in a school, I don't know what you can get the death penalty for," end quote. And then there's Rhonda Whitlock, who lost her lifelong friend to murder. Suzanne Taylor and her two daughters were murdered in Ohio in 2017. Rhonda said, quote, "This man gets to sit and get his medicine for his diabetes, get food every day, and gets to go outside, and my friend is gone," end quote. And somebody like him shouldn't be able to breathe the air that we breathe. The nightmares might end if he's gone. So, I mean, Maria, for some victims' families like Ryan and Rhonda, a killer's death is a relief. So without the death penalty, how should these families find closure or a sense of justice that they can accept?
I mean, I think if you look at other states and nations that don't have the death penalty, that punish people effectively and bring a finality to these cases, because for every number that you've sent me of victims who want the death penalty, I could give you the equal number of victims who don't want more killing to happen in their name, who do not want this process to drag on for years. And there's a reason that we don't allow the victims of any crime, to choose the sentence, right? We're not a society of where we get to have, sort of vigilante justice. If that were the case, we would have a different argument. But there needs to be sort of uniformity in these cases. And it is just clear over and over and over again that the death penalty does not deter crime. It doesn't do anything to keep us safe. And while in some cases it might feel vengeance, might feel good, quote unquote, for victims to feel that this person is killed, What is overwhelmingly true and what the science supports is that when people are able to have finality and the case gets to be over with a life without parole sentence, then they get to start to move on. And I always take issue with the issue of closure. I've spoken to a lot of victim family members. I used to be a prosecutor myself, and so I understand sort of where they're coming from. And closure doesn't happen when you lose a loved one to violence. But what does happen is a healing and a starting to move past. And the death penalty prevents that. It has to prevent that. Whereas if we close, the Parkland case is a perfect example, that the shooter in the Parkland case offered 34 consecutive life sentences less than 1 month after his arrest. That case would have been over and put to bed, and no appeals and no process, which is what's happening now, right? Nobody knows where he is, what he's doing. He is never going to get out of prison, ever. And the case is over. And these families do not have to be dragged back into court for decades to challenge the validity of this sentence.
I'm sure they're happy about that, but I mean, there is a sense from some of them, and they've been very outspoken about it in the media, that the life sentences that he's serving is not enough for them.
And certainly there's a lot of folks that feel the opposite, but I think I struggle with, and coming at it from a legal observation, a moral observation, all of those things, it is pure vengeance. And I don't think we want or should be a society of vengeance.
If you're just joining us, our guest is Maria DeLiberato with Floridians for Alternatives to the Death Penalty, talking about the surge in executions in Florida this year, 13 so far. There are more on the table too. Has your perspective on the death penalty changed over time? What led you to switch on such a controversial topic, if so? The number is 813-755-6562. That's 813-755-6562, or email FloridaMatters@WUSF.org. Maria, how long has Floridians for Alternatives to the Death Penalty been around?
We've been around for more than about 15 years or so. We were a large nonprofit organization. I took over as executive director in June of 2022. And so I've been at the job about 3.5 years, but we've been a largely volunteer organization for over 15 years.
Did your perspective on the death penalty change? I mean, as a former prosecutor, did you kind of hold different thoughts on this when you were working as a prosecutor versus your role now?
So I was raised Catholic, so I was always sort of brought up that the death penalty is sort of morally wrong. And then I started working in the system, and I did sit with sort of victims of who lost loved ones to murder. And I really sort of understood and felt their pain and their visceral desire. So I understood the reason for it. But as I dug into the system, both as a prosecutor and, as a capital defense lawyer, there's no justification outside of vengeance. It's more expensive. We get it wrong too much. We have a low standard. It's not a deterrent. It doesn't keep people safe. And the reality is the people that we are executing are devastated and broken individuals. They are not individuals. The man we executed last night was a victim of the Dozier and Okeechobee school. So the state of Florida admittedly tortured him as a child. And then lo and behold, he commits a violent crime. And now we're going to turn around and execute him. They paid him reparations 3 months ago, and they killed him last night.
Let's go to David. David, you're on the air. What's on your mind?
Yeah, as I was answering your person who handled the call, I'm not a Christian necessarily, but at the same time, I believe in that we all got here by one source, and as we evolve and into this country and into the state, we develop these laws which say you take a life, you better be prepared to surrender yours. Period. And anybody that goes into that is either not thinking clearly or they're just vindictive or whatever, that want to shoot somebody down, like that shooting we're talking about at Douglas High School or Douglas School. That's insanity. I mean, these guys know what they were getting, could get involved in if they shot somebody.
Right. So you're on the side of that, I'm hearing. David, thanks so much for your call. I'm sorry, we're going to have to leave it there. But, I mean, what about that? Is that something you hear a lot from folks, Maria, who are saying, well, look, we think the death penalty should stand in Florida?
I mean, sure, it's the law in this country, but I hear a lot more that it shouldn't, and people really wanting to have an honest conversation. And I welcome anyone and everyone to have an honest conversation about the reality of what people who are convicted of these crimes are in fact thinking, or what they know and what their particular human frailties are before they commit such a crime, because I promise that is not what you think it is.
Is that honest conversation on the horizon, do you think?
It is my hope. We have asked every single legislator in the state of Florida. We've asked Governor DeSantis. We will ask whoever the incoming governor of Florida is to sit down and talk to us about the cost of Florida's death penalty, the cost, the financial cost, the moral cost, the emotional cost. I welcome that conversation.
Just quickly in the last few seconds here, what does it cost to house someone on death row?
It is the cost for each execution has been probably well over, there's been in the hundreds of millions of dollars per execution. I don't have the exact numbers of DOC, but it is more expensive to house someone in single solitary confinement than it is in general population.
Indeed. Well, we're going to have to leave it there. But Maria DiLiberato with the Floridians for Alternatives to the Death Penalty, thank you so much for your insights. Now, we talked about building community on the show yesterday. Here's one example. Sharon Moody defines community building. Plant City native has volunteered for youth sports leagues, the YMCA, and the city's annual Strawberry Festival. That's just to name a few. And she's pushed for positive change in her city. You are going to meet Sharon Moody in just a moment. You're listening to Florida Matters, live and local. More to come after this.
I'm Peter O'Dowd. The guinea worm parasite is so painful that people call it the dragon. A new documentary looks at President Jimmy Carter's efforts to eradicate it.
The children can't go to school. The wives can't go out and get firewood to cook food. So it almost completely incapacitates an entire village.
That's next time on Here and Now.
Coming up at 1 on WUSF.
Florida's big. From the Panhandle to the Keys, no two communities are alike. No matter what happens, Your Florida is here to break down how state government can impact you the most. Like Pamela Rose in Lauderhill, who is struggling to pay high condo assessments.
My concern is that we look like we're going to lose our property, and I'm crying.
Tune in to WUSF or visit online at wusf.org/yourflorida.
The Ringling presents Bijoini Satpathy, Doha. This contemporary classical Indian dance doha, or couplet, navigates the relationship between prayer and play. Performances are October 18th and 19th. Tickets at ringling.org.
Want to catch up on Tampa Bay area news and culture? I'm Sky LeBron, and I got you every weekday morning with the Bay Blend podcast from WUSF. It's quick, fun, and you'll discover something new every day. It's the Bay Blend, wherever you get your podcasts, or at WUSF.org.
Back to Florida Matters, live and local. I'm Matthew Petty. Well, Sharon Moody loves her community. She spent decades volunteering for charitable groups in her hometown of Plant City. Moody founded the Plant City Black Heritage Foundation more than 20 years ago, and she pushed to make the city's iconic Strawberry Festival more inclusive. Sharon Moody, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so Plant City is obviously famous for its annual Strawberry Festival. You were raised in Plant City.
Yes, born and raised
yeah.
in Plant City, yes.
What do you think Plant City should be renowned for? Is it the Strawberry Festival or something else?
Yes, it's a great community. You know everyone. You get along with everyone. Everyone knows me. So I get that respect. Mm-hmm. You know, people knows me, so I get a good vibe from that.
Now, a lot of the reason you are such a well-known figure in the community is you volunteer a lot, right? You've volunteered and worked for organizations like Kiwanis, YMCA, youth sports leagues. You know, some folks hold back a little bit from volunteering. What made you want to get involved?
My kids. When I started out with the youth football, my daughters cheered with the youth football, and it just went on from there. I just kept myself busy. I found myself going through a divorce, and instead of me just sitting on the couch moping, I just started volunteering my time in the community, giving back, and it just made me feel good to help someone else that needed help.
Let me go back to your childhood, if I could. Now, you faced segregation growing up. Did that impact the way you approach life?
Well, yes, we went through the segregation with the schools, and we integrated back in 1969. But I didn't have a problem because I treat people the way I want to be treated. So I don't have a problem. I can get along with anyone.
Yeah. But, I mean, some of those issues that you were facing as a school kid, you were still grappling with those later on, right? Because when it came to the Strawberry Festival, for example, you realized that there was some inequity there, right? Some opportunities that weren't being afforded to black girls in the ways that the other folks had those opportunities.
Oh, yes. You know, back in the day, they wouldn't let blacks, queens, be in the Strawberry Festival parade. And I just advocated for that situation to change. So what happened was we had a meeting at a recreation center, and we brought people in together to try to make that change, which it happened, where we could let our girls be in the Strawberry Festival parade.
Yeah.
But as the MLK parade, that happened because when this came up about the girls couldn't be in the parade, and that's when they said, well, we can start our own parade with the MLK parade.
And this is the Miss Junior Black Plant City, and that's what you started in 1989?
That's correct.
So it's like a competition, right? Like sort of a parallel competition?
Yes, a competition between the girls, which, you know, with talent, you know, pose, beauty. It was awesome for the girls to see them. They want me to bring it back, but, you know, I told them I would help them bring it back, you know, but I got up in age now, so
a lot of work.
Yeah, a lot of work, and let some of the younger people come in and take over.
What I found interesting, though, is like at a certain point, it changed from the Miss Junior Black Plant City to just Miss Junior Plant City, right?
We integrated with everyone. We didn't just say black. If anyone that was in the community that want to take part, that's the reason why we took it out.
So that sort of shows you the impact of this competition, right? You were able to change things within the city through that.
Yes. We had Hispanics, blacks, and whites that participated in the Miss Plant City, Junior Miss Plant City.
Talk to me about the Plant City Black Heritage Celebration. Now, this was something you founded back in 2003, and this was also to make events in the city more inclusive. How did people respond when you started the celebration?
It started out slow, but each year it got bigger. So now that we have the gala on a Friday night, we almost bring 400 to 500 people to the gala at the Trinket Center at Hillsborough Community College. So you can see how it have grown, and, you know, you got to put the work in to get, you know, the results, and which with now it's a diverse group. We have black, white, Hispanic, and all that attends this gala. And we honor just not blacks, we honor other people as well.
So, I mean, did you feel like that has also kind of changed the fabric of the city at all?
Yes. We want it to be more inclusive, not to leave someone out just because it's a black organization that's giving the event, but we want to include everyone, because everyone in this, you know, in the community does something good for the community, whether you're black, white, yellow, green, or whatever. So that's my connection to people. You know, I try to include everyone.
I want to just go back to something. I mean, my colleague Skylar Braun did some reporting on the Strawberry Festival in Plant City. My understanding is there's still no black woman has won the crown there, right?
It's never been one that won the crown. It came the first made, but never won it.
Is that something you want to see?
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
I really do.
Yeah.
Yes.
When you think about Plant City as a kid growing up, how much has it changed for you?
It's changed a lot. We used to couldn't do certain things in the city where, you know, the water fountains was there would say black only or white only. That have gone away, have changed. You got people that's up in management in different companies or whatever. That's changed. So we've come a long ways, you know, but we still have a long ways to go.
Yeah. You seem pretty kind of, you know, equal about it, though. I mean, was there ever a point at which you're like, I got to get out of here? I got to leave Plant City?
Well, sometimes you feel that way, but, you know, you can't keep moving because every place you move going to be the same situation. You just need to work on it.
Mm-hmm. So your philosophy is make the place I'm in better rather than try and
Try to
find greener
find
pastures
some-
elsewhere?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I read that your mom is your hero. How did she influence your life?
My mom was my hero because we did everything together. I learned how to cook from my mom. My mom used to work in the fields and cook for people that worked in the field,
Mhm.
and I used to go with her. And my mom was my best friend.
Yeah. What did she teach you to cook?
All kind of soul food.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite now?
Well, I cook. They told me I cook my yellow rice,
Mhm.
My greens, string beans, different things of that nature. All types of soul food.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah. Thinking about volunteering, you're involved in so much. What would be your advice to folks thinking about wanting to get into it but wondering where to start?
Well, when I started volunteering, I started at the hospital. They used to call it the Pink Lady. And that's when I started volunteering. Then I went to the Youth Football League. And then from there on, I just went everywhere. Because right now, I'm the president of the Kiwanis Club in Plant City. I've been the Kiwanis, Florida district governor for the whole state. I'm with the Christmas parade. I've been on the court enforcement board for 25 years, and I'm the founder of the Plant City Black Heritage. I've been on the YMCA board. So it keeps you busy.
Yeah.
Keep everybody, try to keep them involved, especially the kids, because they can be everywhere and in trouble.
Yeah, you got to be organized yourself too.
Yes, I am.
Yeah.
I try to be at least.
In the last few seconds we have here, what's one thing people should know about Plant City before they visit, or if they want to move there, what should they know?
It's a great community. It's a friendly community. People are very friendly. You get along with everyone. If they want to come, we're the strawberry capital of the world. So we get that from all our work. I volunteer there the whole 9 days when it's there.
Yeah.
So just come out and see us friendly faces, and I just love my town.
Sharon Moody, Plant City native and longtime advocate for her community. Thank you so much for being here, Sharon.
Oh, thank you for inviting me.
Well, finally, we're going to visit a place just outside of Plant City. It's a ghost town called Coronet. It was a booming phosphate mining town until the 1960s. People who'd lived and worked in Coronet shared their memories of the town with WSF's Sky LeBron.
Yes, it goes all the way over there, right?
Jeannie Fletcher hasn't been back to Coronet in more than 20 years. Is it at all weird being back here?
Mm-hmm. I almost cried when I drove up because I haven't been back here.
Now memories are flooding back as Fletcher walks along the property right next to the home she spent some of her childhood in.
I think that was the driveway my granddad would take to go to our house. And we'd sit here and wait for him, get a ride in the back of the pickup truck.
Her grandfather was chief electrician for Coronet Industries, a phosphate mining company right across the street from her old home. The company thrived throughout the early 1900s. In the 1960s, the houses that were built for employees were physically picked up and moved to other nearby communities. Now, one of the only remaining buildings is the Coronet Bungalow, where executives and guests stayed when they were checking out the operation. The bungalow on Coronet Road is now owned by Billy Williams, a local retired farmer.
When I first saw the place, I knew right away it was one of a kind.
Williams grew up in Plant City, but had friends in Coronet, and he knows the area like the back of his hand. And Williams remembers the old Coronet commissary store. He really remembers the sandwiches.
Spiced ham and hog-head cheese, sliced real thin. The best sandwich ever.
The best sandwich ever. That was a story reported by WSF's Sky LeBron. Tomorrow on Florida Matters, live and local. Malfunction Junction. You know it. It's where I-4 and 275 meet. It's getting shut down for the weekend as steel girders go in for a new exit ramp. We would like to know, how is the road closure going to affect you this weekend, and what improvements are you hoping for once the work is complete on Malfunction Junction? You can call 813-755-6562. That's 813-755-6562. Leave a message. and email FloridaMatters@WUSF.org. And of course, tune in tomorrow at noon. That's our show for today. Florida Matters live and local executive producer is Grayson Doctor. Our producer is Amelie Horace. Our intern is Lily Belcher. Our engineer is Jackson Harp. He also composed our theme music. Malika Hollis handled the video. Gio Garvin answers the phones. You can subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and watch on WUSF's YouTube channel. I'm Matthew Petty. Thanks for listening and watching.